unemployment not only here in this country but worldwide. The credit markets are frozen. No money for the slaves out there to borrow it at interest. So they froze that credit. Out of all these trillions of dollars, Bob, you know, they can bounce a CEO out of one of the oldest corporations here in this country, but they just can't seem to get it through their heads that, well, to keep the fiat system going a while longer, you know, to put people back to work, to keep the production going, however limited, and, through the credit system, not a dime for the loaning into the system to keep the system going. They did the same thing in 29, and this was all over banking and them overextending themselves. Well, this has been constructive fraud, and if we were in a court of law with the power heads, if you will, you know, all lined up in their chairs, we could prove this probably without much difficulty. It'd be a short trial. But that's not going to happen, folks. The United States Congress is capitulating. Barack Obama is leading the parade. Well, he's over there on his first international trip, over there with Gordie Brown right now to push the agenda. Oh, boy. Out of the chaos, they are going to bring order. 800-313-9443 will roll your calls.
You're tuned in to the National Intel Report, the Real Talk Radio Show.
Why do I make an announcement right before the bottom of the hour break and then the callers drop off? All right, the lines are wide open. No question too big, no question too small. If you don't understand it, I guarantee you there's hundreds of other people that don't probably understand the same thing. 800-313-9443. You know, gentlemen, Robbie's been strangely silent here. Robbie, you still there?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I'm looking at multitasking. I'm looking at all of what has been set up here. You know, they're now talking groupthink here. They're going to put in new restrictions on the banking, you know, so none of this stuff happens again. And, well, we had the Glass-Steagall Act, and ironically, this was put in during the Great Depression back in 1933. This was a federal law. And the excess, and there was a lot of speculation going on, again by the banks. It was one of the key factors of the banking collapse of 29. Now, what this law did, guys, so everybody understands this forbade commercial banks from underwriting and promoting and selling stocks and bonds. That activity was left to the purview of the investment banks, and these were the Goldman Sachs, the Morgan Stanleys, and the recently, shall they rest in peace, Lehman Brothers. Commercial banks could take deposits and make loans to people. Investment banks underwrote and facilitated the issuing of these stocks and bonds. This law was put in place to prevent the banking speculation that caused the Great Depression, and among other regulations, the Glass-Steagall Act kept commercial banks out of these securities. Well, guess who, gentlemen, in front of Congress in 1987, it was Mr. Irrational Exuberance himself, Alan Greenspan. He made clear in one of his first speeches before Congress back in 87, and he called for the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act. In other words, he was trying to get rid of the legislation that kept the lid on the banks speculating in financial markets with securities. So here's the guy right now that is in the ear of Barack Obama giving him advice on banking inside this country and the many trillions of dollars. And, Bob, all of them are calling for it. We need more stimulus. We need more stimulus. Absolutely incredible. But the majority of the people don't understand this. Let's go to the phone.
The stimulus is only to save the core of the system, not the system itself. And the core is the financial end of things, the banks, Wall Street, the insurance companies, and other lenders. And they're going to have to really pour a pile of money in there, and that's why they're asking for more. And, you know, I think a lot of the public really realize that it's wrong We shouldn't be doing it. But they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Congress does not respond at all because they're in the back pocket of the bankers. And so, already, and I don't know whether Stephen Lenman, who's all of his articles I carry in my publication, as you know, I don't know if he had a total there. Did he have a total?
He's got the Public-Private Investment Program, the PPIP, if you will, the PPIP.
No, all of it added together.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. On March 23rd, the latest in a growing alphabet soup of handouts, he writes, topping $12.5 trillion and counting.
John, I projected on this program 6 months ago that the figure by this time, the end of the first quarter, would be 12 to 13 trillion.
You nailed it.
And so didn't he. And the rest of them will catch up. It's just like Barron's coming out over the weekend saying, we don't believe those figures from the Commerce Department and the other statistics that are coming out from Census and from the different agencies like the Commerce Department that put them out. We don't believe them anymore. Well, where was Barron's and these other so-called experts 10 years ago when I started writing about what they were doing? Nowhere to be found. And so the same thing will happen with these numbers. What are we looking at? This year, somewhere between 15 and 20 trillion. Next year, probably 30 to 40 trillion. So it bears out exactly what you're saying. They're going to pour money and credit into the system. You also hear that when enough has been poured in, we're going to start taking it back out again. Of course, that is not going to be the case, because if they take it back out again, the whole thing collapses. Now, the Europeans know this, but they're saying, you started the problem. You wanted to have this world government thing this way, so you pour all the money in, and we're going to try to keep our ship afloat over here. And so they're going to go back and forth on this issue. But they're going to continue to create money and inflation. And gold and silver are absolutely going to go into orbit.
Well,
and you wouldn't have Citigroup, J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman, and UBS telling you gold's going to go to 2,000 to 2,500 if they weren't trying to set up a buffer there. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to mentally condition people that that's the top so that they can set a value for gold, which will be used in part to back a new currency. And they're loaded with gold, believe me. I mean, who do you think bought all that British gold at $275 an ounce? The Rothschilds. It's a matter of public record. And all along, every time one of these countries was selling their gold, they were buying it.
Well, here's the irony to this. The latest Fed flow of funds data, and this is showing trillions in vanished household wealth.
Wait a minute. What month?
This is the latest.
January?
It would have to be the last quarter.
Okay, go ahead. Excuse me for
No, that's okay. That's clarification. Here's what vanished in the household savings and wealth. $12.9 trillion from real estate, savings investments, and other personal losses. And
so now you know why we have a 12.5 to 13 trillion figure.
That's right.
It's a neutralizing effect so that the economy just won't collapse. And as we go along, inflation is going to eat up this extra money and credit that's gone into the system. And unfortunately, the wages are not going to increase during this period.
No, they're decreasing.
Even though inflation is. And the American people are just going to get eaten up.
Yep. It's happening. It's happening right now. I was watching stories yesterday inside General Motors. It was actually CNBC that did the story. Affected suppliers, so on and so forth. People that are now working in General Motors took buyout plans. Guess what? The replacements are coming in, and they're going to pay them half of what they were paying them before. And this is all on top of, as I said at the top of the program, with a company with a CEO and the problems within General Motors were vast, but over the last 20 years, the number one issue has been quality, and every CEO come up to the plate. I don't care who, Roger Smith, it doesn't matter who it was. They all said, well, yes, we recognize that we need to upgrade quality. They've been talking about upgrading quality for 20 years, only to watch the foreign manufacturers just absolutely eat their lunch in innovation, new engines, drivetrains. They put their money. The only thing that the big three were doing was reshaping the sheet metal. They made some advances, but they were making, Bob, this was like, I don't know, they were making Roman chariots while the other people were making Speedo cars.